B-2 stealth bombers just executed insanely high-risk sorties deep into Iranian airspace, hammering dozens of deeply buried Iranian ballistic missile sites with 2,000-pound penetrator munitions. This is a massive escalation within Operation Epic Fury, and this is straight-up B-2 air power dominance. We are talking long-range sorties, stealth penetration, and precision kinetic strikes that have already degraded Iran's missile launch capacity by roughly 90%. The Pentagon is actively crippling one of Tehran's most lethal asymmetric threats before the Patriot and Arrow interceptor batteries across the Gulf even have to engage. Iran's primary doctrine is saturation tactics. They want to overwhelm those air defense grids by launching massive swarms. But degrading their launch capability by 90% is a massive strategic victory. And the B-2 Spirit has a lot to do with that. They've been systematically neutralizing hardened ballistic missile bunkers. Now, seeing Iran's underground bunkers is nothing new. The regime has broadcasted propaganda footage of those facilities for years, but a significant portion of those sites have just been permanently removed from the battlefield. Make sure you are subscribed to Titan Mechanics and hit that bell icon so you never miss a critical military intel update. And let us know where you stand right now in the comments. Drop a 5 if you stand with the US. Press 6 if you back Iran. Or hit 7 if you just want peace. Now, let's look at the intel. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Cooper delivered a highly classified briefing regarding actual combat missions executed on March 5th. And it is not just ballistic missile silos being neutralized. Intelligence indicates a highly fortified leadership bunker has been struck as well, severely degrading the regime's capacity to maintain any cohesive command and control structure. Furthermore, the IDF released a bombshell intelligence video. We are going to analyze Admiral Cooper's assessment, and then we will review an actual tactical diagram of that specific bunker complex. During the briefing, Admiral Cooper stated that U.S. combat power is actively surging while Iranian offensive capability rapidly declines. He emphasized that American air dominance allows the coalition to strike Iran's absolute center of gravity with overwhelming kinetic reach. He provided specific examples, noting that in a 72-hour window, America's strategic bomber force struck nearly 200 high-value targets deep inside Iran, including sites directly orbiting Tehran. And in a devastating follow-up, he confirmed that US B-2 bombers dropped dozens of 2,000-pound penetrator munitions targeting deeply buried ballistic missile launchers. Notably, he confirmed strikes against Iran's equivalent of Space Command, permanently degrading their ability to threaten American aerospace assets. So, as the data confirms, this is a massive kinetic operation unfolding deep within the Iranian mainland. These are not just standoff weapons hitting the borders. We are talking about strategic bombers penetrating all the way to Tehran. And the open-source intelligence corroborating this is staggering. The IDF released a highly detailed operational diagram of a bunker complex situated right in the heart of Iran, believed to be in Tehran itself. It is designated as a primary leadership bunker. The intelligence assessment states that senior Iranian regime officials remained in this specific bunker, operating under the assumption it was impenetrable. Shortly after, an estimated 50 coalition fighter jets struck the facility with over 100 precision munitions, effectively destroying it in a decapitation strike that significantly cripples the regime's strategic capabilities. It is a testament to the sheer depth of IDF and Mossad intelligence gathering. They possess exact architectural diagrams demonstrating how these bunkers are engineered, how the subterranean networks connect, and the specific ventilation shafts utilized by high-value targets. This is an absolutely catastrophic day for Iranian leadership. The fact that these highly classified blueprints are now public domain indicates the complete collapse of Iranian operational security. The B-2 Spirit offers no apologies. It only delivers devastating kinetic results. However, the geopolitical fallout is rapidly evolving. Recent reports from Al Jazeera indicate Iran has initiated retaliatory strikes targeting the Israeli embassy in Bahrain and the Al Udeid airbase in Qatar. The outlet is attempting to push a narrative that the US and its Gulf allies were caught off guard. Given Al Jazeera's historical alignment with certain proxy organizations and their occasionally anti-Western editorial slant, this rhetoric is expected. But the raw combat data tells a completely different story. We are tracking a 90% decrease in ballistic missile launches since day one, alongside an 83% reduction in suicide drone activity. In response to this massive attrition, Iran has pivoted to highly targeted, strategic strikes. Because they can fire significantly fewer munitions, they are maximizing their targets, focusing heavily on petroleum, oil, lubricants, and critical energy production facilities. Reports indicate they successfully impacted a facility in Bahrain, and they are actively attempting to hit U.S. and Israeli consulates to maximize regional chaos. But the strategic response from Washington is deafening. Those B-2 bombers likely launched directly from Whiteman Air Force Base, executing massive long-haul global strike missions to deliver specific variants of the GBU-31 JDAM equipped with the BLU-109 penetrator warhead. The BLU-109 is engineered specifically to annihilate hardened underground facilities. The primary strategic objective is to surgically degrade Iran's capacity to unleash large-scale ballistic missile barrages against Israel, U.S. forward-deployed forces, and regional partners by systematically crushing deeply buried launchers, subterranean storage caves, and critical support infrastructure. The B-2 is neutralizing Tehran's asymmetric edge with terrifying efficiency. And the dramatic decline in Iranian missile and drone activity proves that this doctrine of plinking off ballistic missile silos, even those buried under massive layers of steel, concrete, and compacted earth, is highly effective. These sites are absolutely not off limits for the specific penetrator weapons carried by the B-2, and we are tracking the standard penetrators. Fully aware that the massive 30,000-pound GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator remains in the U.S. arsenal for exponentially deeper targets. These specific missile bunkers are likely not as deeply fortified as their uranium enrichment sites, requiring only a few dozen feet of penetration rather than hundreds. For years, Tehran has aggressively broadcasted propaganda, showcasing these sprawling underground missile cities and subterranean command centers, boasting they were entirely impenetrable. Clearly, that is no longer the tactical reality. Witnessing a primary leadership bunker being obliterated in the heart of an Iranian metropolis proves the gloves are entirely off, and the surviving leadership has absolutely zero sanctuary for secure command and control. They have constructed vast tunnel networks carved directly into mountain ranges, housing short and medium-range ballistic missiles like the Fateh, Qiyam, and Shahab series, alongside mobile transporter erector launchers and automated silo systems. Their core doctrine relies on geographic dispersion. Avoid centralizing assets in one massive facility, but rather spread them across the country to complicate coalition targeting. The strategy is to rapidly wheel these systems out, execute a launch, and immediately retreat into the subterranean networks. President Trump previously stated the U.S. military can detect and strike these mobile launchers within 4 minutes of a launch. Consequently, Iran's entire operational window is compressed into attempting to fire and vanish within 240 seconds. And frankly, the actual U.S. kill chain is likely significantly faster than the unclassified 4-minute metric. But coalition intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or ISR, is currently operating at a next-level capacity over the entirety of Iran. Absolute air superiority has been established, particularly in the southern sectors, allowing coalition bombers to transition into a persistent, stand-in strike posture, neutralizing targets with absolute impunity. While the B-2 is the undisputed star of this stealth penetration phase, recent intelligence confirms Iran is desperately attempting to maintain retaliatory waves. However, the volume and frequency of these launches are crashing hard. This massive attrition is directly attributed to these deep penetration strikes, sealing off bunker entrances, collapsing tunnel networks, and permanently bottling up Iran's arsenals so the munitions can never reach the launch pads. Satellite imagery from late February reveals catastrophic damage at multiple complexes. Even if the coalition doesn't vaporize every single missile, destroying the mobile launchers and collapsing the egress points effectively neutralizes the entire facility. Initial intelligence estimated Iran possessed roughly 400 to 500 launchers and approximately 2,500 ballistic missiles. By systematically plinking these launchers within their subterranean hiding spots, the U.S. is severing the head of the snake. In a desperate counteroffensive, Iran is actively targeting Gulf energy infrastructure. They recently struck the Bapco refinery in Bahrain with an asymmetric payload, sparking a massive fire that was eventually contained with zero combat casualties and limited structural damage. They also targeted Saudi Arabia's massive Ras Tanura refinery, causing localized fires and partial operational shutdowns. Furthermore, they impacted Qatar's Ras Laffan LNG plant, triggering temporary production halts and minor global supply chain disruptions. Combined with confirmed strikes on oil tankers transiting the Strait of Hormuz and fuel storage depots in Oman and the UAE, Iran is demonstrating they remain a highly lethal adversary that must be decisively neutralized. These desperate kinetic actions have intentionally spiked global oil and gas markets, proving Tehran is attempting to inflict maximum economic pain as their actual military capacity plummets. They clearly recognize this as their final strategic stand, attempting to empty their silos before the coalition permanently seals them. But let's refocus on those B-2s, dropping dozens of 2,000-pound penetrators directly onto the buried infrastructure Iran relies on. This operation is physically choking their capacity to sustain high-volume missile barrages. We are talking about mountain-carved missile complexes with reinforced vaults sunk dozens of feet into solid rock. When a B-2 drops a concentrated payload of GBU-31 equipped with BLU-109 penetrators onto a specific coordinate, it generates enough kinetic energy to collapse massive tunnel networks and render the entire site permanently inoperable. The tactical goal isn't necessarily to vaporize every single missile. It is to shatter the ventilation shafts, collapse the access ramps, and make it physically impossible for the IRGC to deploy the weapons. The most shocking metric is how rapidly their launch rate cratered, the exact moment the B-2 bomber force shifted focus to buried infrastructure. Iran is now desperately lighting up civilian refineries out of sheer tactical frustration. They recognize their ballistic missile reserves, the assets they assumed were untouchable, are being systematically dismantled. This translates to fewer operational launchers and rapidly degrading systems due to an air campaign designed to methodically starve their retaliation machine. This chaotic operational environment will not last long if the U.S. maintains the kinetic pressure, utilizing a historic surge of B-2s, B-1s, and B-52s to deliver relentless payloads. The sheer strategic value of the B-2 Spirit executing stealthy, intercontinental strike missions directly from the American heartland cannot be overstated. Evading advanced air defenses and delivering devastating precision from high altitude, these missions underscore the absolute dominance of the American military-industrial complex. The GPS-guided GBU-31, paired with the BLU-109 penetrator, features a hardened casing designed to punch through earth, solid rock, and heavily reinforced concrete, easily penetrating 4 to 6 feet of solid concrete or significantly deeper through compacted soil before the delayed smart fuse initiates. Once it punches through the hardened layers, the fuse detonates roughly 500 pounds of tritonal explosive, generating a catastrophic shockwave and massive overpressure designed to collapse the tunnels and vaporize everything inside. Persistent, high-fidelity intelligence drives the target selection. Stealth technology guarantees penetration into the airspace. And localized suppression of enemy air defenses, or SEAD, neutralizes any surviving surface-to-air missile batteries. These deep strategic strikes effectively bottle up the asymmetric threats without requiring a massive deployment of conventional ground forces. The current strategic posture heavily favors avoiding a large-scale ground invasion, recognizing the immense logistical and human cost of past conflicts. The objective is a highly surgical, kinetic operation, preparing the battle space in the event that specialized Tier 1 operators need to be inserted. Allies like Israel are executing parallel kinetic strikes, but these strategic B-2 bombers bring an unmatched combination of global reach and devastating payload capacity, proving exactly why U.S. aerospace dominance is currently unbeatable. The ultimate strategic objective is the smart, ruthless application of American air power to achieve force-multiplied destruction. This dictates hitting the missile forces incredibly hard and early to fundamentally reshape the geopolitical battlefield, completely suppress launch capacity, and create the operational breathing room required for subsequent phases. Whether that involves total regime collapse or further operations to dismantle the IRGC infrastructure. The core doctrine is clear. Decisively degrade the enemy's strategic weapons before they can deploy them in volume. Protect forward deployed forces and allied nations, and maintain absolute escalation control. While the coalition ramps up its kinetic output, the enemy is physically forced to ramp down. The coordinated moves by the US and Israel are decisive, heavily leveraging superior intelligence, stealth technology, and precision munitions to completely outthink and outfight the adversary. The objective is to permanently suppress Iran's capacity to threaten the region while meticulously avoiding an unnecessary conventional ground war. The coalition is actively preparing the battle space, systematically softening the targets before potentially inserting Delta Force, Navy SEALs, or other specialized operators to secure high-value assets without facing overwhelming IRGC resistance. So, let's analyze a highly realistic tactical scenario if Tehran becomes utterly desperate after losing the majority of their launch capacity. It is highly probable they will attempt to fully activate their proxy networks, initiating heavy Hezbollah barrages from Lebanon, orchestrating massive Houthi drone swarms against commercial shipping, and deploying surviving IRGC naval assets to aggressively mine or blockade the Straits of Hormuz. Admiral Cooper from CENTCOM recently confirmed that roughly 30 Iranian naval vessels have already been neutralized. Consequently, Iran is heavily reliant on fast attack craft to deploy sea mines, a tactic that will likely be swiftly countered by U.S. Navy attack submarines and forward-deployed naval assets. Predictably, global energy markets are experiencing high volatility as the sector anticipates the total destruction of Iran's capacity to threaten commercial shipping. But coalition air power is aggressively surging. We are tracking waves of additional B-2S, B-1S, B-52S, and 5th-generation F-35S pushing into the theater. Tomahawk cruise missiles and precision-guided munitions are primed to pulverize any remaining missile silos. Crucially, intelligence indicates the coalition is now targeting the actual production facilities, not just destroying the existing ballistic missiles, but permanently eradicating Iran's industrial capacity to manufacture them. This massive surge will exponentially crank up the kinetic intensity while simultaneously preparing the battle space for the next phase of the operation. That subsequent phase will likely focus on systematically rooting out the surviving elements of the IRGC and completely dismantling the remnants of Iran's old command structure. This battle space preparation could realistically last for several months, but by relentlessly hammering mobile launchers and completely severing their resupply logistics, the coalition guarantees Iran's capacity to project asymmetric chaos around the globe is continuously and permanently strangled. The B-2 Spirit is executing flawless deep penetration strikes against hardened targets, ushering in a brutal new phase focused on annihilating Iran's ballistic missile production capabilities. So, where does this unprecedented kinetic phase take the geopolitical landscape? How long do you assess it will take to fully prepare the battle space for the next operational phase? What strategic objectives do you consider the most critical right now? Sound off in the comments below. Smash that like button, subscribe to Titan Mechanics, and we will see you on the next tactical breakdown.